or sit. So I love this day. I mean, I love any day that lets us have a little bit more fun in church. I mean, there is a cat crawling into the sound booth right now, so what more do you need? I think we need more of the, I mean, not more of this, don't do this every Sunday, but the energy that we all show up with, right? The delight and the giddiness, and it's sort of like school spirit day, right? Like, bring your mascot to church. I mean, selfishly, it's also, I used to be Catholic. My backstory is I used to be Catholic, so I have a baptism name, and Francis is my baptism name. So I'm very attached to this day, and especially because you'll notice we don't celebrate most saints' feast days in the Episcopal Church, or at least in like the average Episcopal Church. There are like some incense and bells and smells churches where you'll get all of it. But this is one of the few that like fights through it all, and we still celebrate, so much so that it doesn't really matter if it's the actual feast of St. Francis. We all transfer it and we celebrate it. And so it's this funny thing within our practice and in our tradition, this character of Francis and what he has become and what he symbolizes within our tradition and our church. Now, Francis, many of you will see Francis, who looks like this. I love having a visual aid right there. I had a professor in seminary who did a St. Francis sermon who talked about how he's gotten relegated to the bird bath, right? Like we say, he's gotten stuck with the animals, and you think of the pictures of him, you know, sort of, it feels very like Snow White, right? You think of the birds like following him. So who was Francis, right? He was a very wealthy nobleman, child of a nobleman, in like 1220 something, long time ago, and ended up giving up all of his sort of wealth and prosperity to follow the gospel and to live as Jesus instructed. And really, I mean, as much as he had a care for creation to what he preached and said, his true passion was care for the poor, right? Like that is, the gospel you hear today makes absolute sense as being the gospel assigned for this feast of St. Francis, because he was someone who gave up all of his wealth to follow the gospel. And he cared for creation. And there's some stories around that have led to the lore, stories of the birds gathering around him. There is a story of him taming the wolf of Gubbio that was terrorizing this town. And he has claim to being the first person to do a live nativity scene. So we can thank Francis for that. If you've never been to a live nativity scene, I had a priest I worked for who we had sheep and goats and all sorts of things at the altar on Christmas Eve. So Francis, for all we connect him to creation, is truly a person who underscores the need to care for all people. And in fact, the two things are connected. Our care for creation and our care for the poor. We are concluding 5 weeks of a focus on care for creation here. It's been a season of creation, you'll notice in our bulletin. And in fact, you really can't separate out the two things. Our care for the most disenfranchised and our care for this fragile earth. Because the impacts of how we care for the earth, how we care for creation, are first and foremost going to impact those with the least. It's the impacts of climate change and food deserts and everything in between that are impacting those who have the least resources to deal with it. Now, it is not lost on me the privilege that Francis had. He was enormously wealthy, and that was the only reason he could do what he did, to give up his wealth and go on this adventure. But he set an example that has lasted for generations, spawning the Order of St. Francis, the Order of St. Clare, a noblewoman who followed him as well in his footsteps. As we gather with our adorable pets and the creation all around us, I am reminded of our common life and connection. How intrinsic these pets are to your lives, how intrinsic our neighbors are to us, whether we know it or not. We gather and do this work with Tent City behind us, a gift that we're able to give back to those in need, and a reminder that we can always be doing more. St. Francis makes us feel good. We get to celebrate and have some joy in church. But I pray and hope we don't lose sight of the work and the message that he did, the life that he lived, that we don't lose him in the bird baths. Yes, let us celebrate and care for creation, not just because it feels good or easy or light or soft, as it sometimes can get relegated to, but because it is a vital part of the work of justice for the least among us, to do what Jesus called us to do, to fight for those in need, to speak for the marginalized, to speak for creation. We have some blessings to do. We have some joy to get to. May Francis, in all that he did, all that he gave up, and all that he took on, serve as an example for us of the nuanced and intertwined relationship of our creation and ourselves, our neighbors, and this fragile earth, that we may bless it and be a blessing to it this day and always. Amen. Let's see, I do believe, now normally I would give us time to sit and reflect. We have many guests who make sitting and reflecting harder to do today. So I believe next is the blessing of the animals. So thank you. What we're going to do is I'll invite each of you who has your pet. If making a line makes sense, you can do that. If your pet is going to be distracted by other pets, you can wait. But we'll invite you each to come up and receive your blessing or your stuffy or your photo so that we can celebrate God's creation that's here today. Okay?